The reason why courage is so important whenever change is on the horizon is that when you make a change, it requires neuroplasticity. And for those that are not familiar with neuroscience, neuroplasticity is essentially the brain's ability to adapt and create new neural pathways, you could say. Now, it's actually advantageous for us to have more neural pathways. This is one of the reasons why traveling can be very important. It's also one of the reasons why having a routine but not doing the same thing in the routine can be very useful. You know, going to new coffee shops or new grocery stores or whatever, you know, just doing things that are new, trying new things. Instead of, you know, writing with, if you're right-handed, try to write with your left hand. You know, all these little things that actually improve. Or like when you sit cross-legged, do you sit with your, you know, your right leg over your left over your right? You know, try switching it up. Or if you hold your hands, is it your right hand over your left or is it your left over your right? Just try switching things up a little bit here and there, and that'll increase your neuroplasticity. And when you start to increase your neuroplasticity, what actually happens is you are realizing, and people realize, that the more openly spontaneous you are, the more natural you are, like a child, more people realize, oh, this is your world. I'm just in it. And this makes people, they feel a certain way about it. They don't always know what to do and why. They don't always know how to feel about it because they're seeing with plain eyes, clear evidence that it is your world and they're just in it. And they don't know what to do about it. They don't realize that, you know, there's something more going on here, perhaps. Perhaps you've gone through some trauma, or you've gone through some things where you've realized that you have to command abundance. You have to command truth into being by living the truth and letting die what is false. You see, everybody's gangster until you have to live the truth and let die what is false. And this is one of the reasons why I have developed the Regal timeline theory, and I'm working on the book for it. It'll be out very, very soon. And I'm very pleased with the work that is inside of it because it's kind of created itself. You know when you're creating something and it kind of just, you know, creates itself. Like if you're playing on the guitar, like the other night I was playing a tune on the guitar and somehow a song just kind of fell out of the guitar. And that's exactly how the book that I've been writing on the Regal timeline theory has felt. You know, and this is how a lot of what I do in Godlike Mastery for my initiates that I have, as well as the Regal Academy. I was thinking about this the other day because I mentioned this in the group call yesterday. I said to somebody, I said, look, does a tree plan its way to life? You know, does a lotus flower plan its way to the top? No, it just kind of goes through the muck and arises at the very top, and it just grows. Same thing with life. Sometimes we have to just let go of what we think that we're supposed to do, and we're supposed to have planned, and just grow, just live. And that's very difficult for a lot of us because we're not really used to that. Everybody wants a plan. And of course, my Godlike Mastery system is a system to get out of systems. And it's for people that are actually, I've seen this a lot with people. They want like the title of Godlike Mastery. They want the status of Godlike Mastery. But they don't actually want the upheaval that comes with Godlike Mastery. It's like, this is the Regal Academy. This is Godlike Mastery. This is not like comfortable mastery. You know, this is not depleted Coomer Academy. You know, this is actually something that we want to instill into the society that, yeah, it's going to be sophisticated, but it's also going to be very fun and playful. Because I don't think that you can actually do something that is difficult and not be playful with it. Otherwise, you're going to go into an existential crisis. Now, that may need to be happening. You may need to go into an existential crisis. There's something Nietzsche said is that he who has a why can bear him almost any how. And that is very, very true. Because if you have a why for your reason to live, like, you have to create that. You just have to create it. And because the meaning of life is that there is no meaning. And a lot of people will be like, well, that's kind of depressing and sad. It's like, well, you can look at it like this. You can say, oh, there's really no meaning to life. Or you can say, oh, there's no meaning to life, so I got to create the meaning. Fantastic. And so you can choose how to see it. This is why in the Regal timeline theory, I talk a lot about perception, and presuppositions going into a narrative structure are going to be exactly what determines the outcome of the narrative structure in your timeline more often than not. So it's the same type of thing with psychophysiological trauma. If you have trauma, like, let's take high functioning anxiety for instance. If you have high functioning anxiety, what you're going to be focused on is, I might just make a whole video about this on the Regal Shaman channel actually, but high functioning anxiety is essentially where you are always needing to be busy. You're always trying to people please. You act like everything's fine on the outside, and it looks like you are, but you're actually super, super anxious. Most women that I've met have high functioning anxiety, where they're always thinking about what to do next, what to do next, what to do next, what to do next, what to do next. How do I do this? How do I do that? Like, they're always trying to think about what's next. That's why they need sensations. That's why women are so, because they're like natural harvesters, right? They're always trying to harvest things. What, like, have you ever seen those couples on, Instagram or TikTok when the husband's like, honey, we don't need that. What are you doing? And, well, but what, just in case. But we don't need that. Oh, well, just in, like, women are natural, gatherers and harvesters. That's what they do, even if they don't need it. So their instinct is to do this type of thing, right? And when women are high functioning anxiety, they're going to do that like tenfold. It's going to be ludicrous. Whereas with men, I don't think men have as much high functioning anxiety as women do. When men usually have anxiety or depression or something like that, they usually just don't do anything. they just don't do much at all. Like, their drive, they're not really industrious. Like, high anxiety, high performance anxiety, like when you're really able to perform at a high level but you have a lot of anxiety, you're super industrious, but you're also super conscientious, like excessive conscientiousness. Whereas the man with depression or anxiety, usually he's either hyper conscientious and really not industrious, or he is super not conscientious and super not industrious either. So it really depends on just the type of traits that this individual is going through and all that. But what I've seen a lot of times, and I'm not saying it's right or wrong, to do that. I'm just saying that's, the predicament. So what we can see is how individuals really do create their own worlds by the presuppositions going into the narrative structures. And so when people realize that this is your world, like when you are living on a sovereign timeline, if you're actually living the truth and letting die what is false to the best of your ability, just to the best way how, you're not perfect, but that in that imperfection is perfection, and you're really aiming to live like a better life. You don't always know what that looks like, but you just trust the process. When you do that, and you're sovereign at least as much as possible, people don't like that. People don't know how to handle that a lot of times. People don't like that that you're somebody that if they went to war with you, they would know that it wouldn't end well for them, because you've seen and experienced enough to know what is and what isn't when it comes to truth in being. And look, truth is a tricky thing. Like, don't get too hung up on like, oh, I know what truth is. Once you feel like you can cling on to truth, you don't have truth. Because truth is not something that you grasp. It's like trying to grasp the ocean, right? It's Krishnamurti, who I'm not really certain Krishnamurti was a free being. And the reason being is because he didn't seem very playful. And every free being that I've ever seen, at least heard about or read about or seen in some way, shape, or form, they were playful. You know, I don't see a lot of individuals who are super uptight and angry a lot being free beings. It just doesn't happen. I think Krishnamurti has a lot of great things to say, and I think he's an excellent teacher, don't get me wrong, as far as like a resource. But yeah, the sense of playfulness is very important. Like being able to have more fun, being able to be more at ease, that's super important. People don't realize how important that is until they need it. You know, they need that that energy and that vitality and that truth of just being able to freely give and receive with maximum positivity, because that's basically heaven. Heaven is a place in time where you can freely give and freely receive. Now, a lot of people will be like, wait, what? You know, what are you talking about? Well, you have to have the context of the Regal timeline theory in order for you to see this. This is something else we talked about in the Regal Academy yesterday. Was a lot of this is a matter of empirical fact, because you can say, well, you know, let's see. You know, you can say, well, that stick that you're holding there, Thaddeus, is unbreakable. It looks unbreakable, so it must be unbreakable. And I'll say, well, actually, you know, I'm holding it, and I don't think it's unbreakable. You know, I don't think it's unbreakable. And no, I believe it's unbreakable. Okay. The only way to know is to do something about it, or to just not do anything about it. Just like, okay, well, you have your perspective, I have mine. I guess we'll never know if the stick is able to be broken or not. Now, this is the type of thing where, again, people get upset because you're not really buying into what they think that you should. And what they think that you should be buying into is a narrative, and they want to force that narrative on you. This is why I'm at war with the religionists, the politicians, the government, and the education system. Because these are all designed in the spirit of the time. They're all designed, and I've never really seen a religion that isn't a cult. You know, I've never seen that, and I've never seen a religion that is a system to free systems, or to free you of systems. Every single religion that I've seen almost requires you to participate in certain dogmatic ways. And if you're not aligned with it, then they call you, like, you know, someone that's going to hell or whatever. And so I don't really adhere to that. I don't see that as the case. Because if that were the case, then why do there exist free beings who don't have any type of formal rituals or anything, or any type of dogma, and they're more playful and at ease with existence, and they can do all these amazing things, and they don't even want people to know about it. They don't even want people to know. What's that? You know, what is it? Well, it's just fake. You're gonna write that off so easily? You know, it doesn't make sense to me. So what I see to be the case is that you can either open yourself up to possibilities, or you can keep yourself in a cage. Now, it doesn't mean that opening yourself up to possibilities means that you accept those possibilities. It just means that you're open to it. And this is part of the godlike mastery system that I have, is being able to be open to anything, but don't conform to anything. That's the key difference, and that's one of the primary teachings, because I'm not the teacher, I'm not the mentor, I'm the godlike mastery education through godlike mastery and Regal Academia. So I trust that this message reached those that have eyes to see and ears to hear. It's a beautiful morning, and I'm going to change up my schedule a bit today. It kind of just feels time for a change for some reason. So I'm going to live spontaneously. Well, spontaneously. There you go. I was going to say a lot of different things, but it came out with a new word, so that's all right. All right, everybody. Peace. Be blessed. Until next time.